precogs handle weirdness like really well.
Yeah, yeah. Because once you've had it happen to you enough times, you realize, oh well, that's fun, but I'm driving in traffic and I got to concentrate on, and then I got to go to the grocery store and buy some greens for dinner. Like,
Yeah.
you have to learn how to just kind of roll with it and not, like just because something weird happens doesn't mean that your entire life comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah. And that's the advice I give to everyone as they come to the subreddit and everything. I'm like they get freaked out, and I'm just like, no, go with the flow. Like that's the easier way to go about things. And once you kind of get with that, it has all these other effects, and it's nice, very nice.
Yeah, it actually, what it does is it helps you calm down about everything. I
Hmm.
feel like if you can roll with the, oh well, that really weird thing just happened, then like you're sort of not. What was it? Terrence McKenna, I think. I mean, and he was the legendary psychonaut, and like ayahuasca and mushrooms and everything. Came back from some like deep, deep ayahuasca trip and met the machine elves and the entities, and the message that he brought back was, "Don't give in to astonishment."
Mm, I love that.
And I thought about that a lot. I was like, that's damn good advice. The longest precog that I know that I've had was seriously like 35 years. Because when I was 7 or so, I had a very vivid dream. And it was I don't like the feature of the dream was that I was in a group of people and we were walking into this temple. It was sort of a temple, but it was also sort of like like it was a carnival kind of. It was very peculiar. It was nothing that in my 7-year-old life I had ever experienced. And the when we got to the temple, in order to get in, there were these moving like platforms. There were stones. There were like stepping stones, but they were moving back and forth, and you had to jump from one to the other. And this was, it was such a particular dream, and the motifs were so bizarre to me at that age that I don't know if I wrote it down or if I just remembered it, but it was one of those that I came back to. There were a few dreams that I can remember from when I was a kid. Some of them were like stress trauma dreams, but this one was really, really very different. And it wasn't until I was 42 years old that I was watching the movie Book of Life. And
Mm.
in that movie, there is a scene where the main characters go into the underworld. There's, this is a Mexican Day of the Dead thing. So they go into the level of the underworld where the people who are remembered, and then they have to, the plot is they have to find their dead relative, and they've got to get this guy to be back alive. And anyway, and I recognized it. It's a giant like carnival temple, and there are all of these these things, and then to get from one place to the other within the temple, they're jumping from platform to platform as they go in. I mean, I'm so old that back in when I was 7 years old, I know that like Super Mario Brothers invented this too, but that hadn't been invented when I was 7. None of this had happened.
Yeah.
And no, but it was just one of these moments where I watched the movie and I was like, wait, stop.
And
Okay, all right. So, I mean, I get a lot of these, the more memorable ones seem to be like precogs out of movies, like movie spoilers or shows or something like that. So I don't know that I didn't pull any particular meaning from it other than like, oh, that happened. I think that, I could expand it into, there are like, I could use it as let's put it this way, as a wrench to get into some of my older memories and, to help me with some of the trauma that I went through when I was a child and finding my family. I'm adopted. I found my bio family. They turned out to be Hispanic, which I didn't know. So I could sort of draw like a Jungian thing with it. But as, when it happened, when these things happen, I'm always just kind of like, Ah, okay. That happened, you know?
That dream from forever ago, like the Temple Carnival, the moving platforms, like I've had dreams very, very similar to that. So like I'm like looking at how the subconscious treats certain things as, hey, this is meaningful. Like when you're gonna watch this movie in the future, it's gonna seem, like it's almost like there is interpretation there for like a place that has a special meaning to it, and you're going to yourself move from one state to another almost like I don't know if that makes sense, but uh, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
I'm
it's
really
certainly,
interested.
yeah, it made
Oh,
me pay attention to that movie and kind of like look at it and go, huh, what am I actually getting out of this movie? You know, and what is going on in my life right now?
yeah, we always have to remember our subconscious is watching things with us too.
Mhm. Yeah. My second longest precog was also one that I can identify was one that was also movie related, and funnily enough, it was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas,
Love it.
the Johnny Depp one.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Um, I was 13, and I just had an event. I don't know. I can't really describe what it was. I just stayed home from school for 2 days. I wasn't able to eat. I was kind of like almost having seizures, but not quite. But it was some sort of just thing was happening. And while I was in this peculiar state, I had actual like visions, and they weren't very extensive and they weren't very coherent, but two things that I remembered, and one of them was very vividly being in this hallway, and it had wainscoting that went up to here, and it had this burgundy wallpaper, and it had these tulip-shaped um, sconces, like lighting fixtures, and it curved to the right as you were looking at it, and it was just such a vivid thing. I was like, "Huh, what the hell is that?" And 13 years later, I went to see that movie in the movie theater, and that's one of the hotels they stay in. They have a scene that takes place in that hallway.
Oh man.
And I was like, ah!
Right,
Kind of,
like sconces are very specific. Like when
yeah.
you notice a detailed like sconce and then you end up seeing it again, it's like, hey, that is either same or different, and that is the same one.
Yeah, that was very, and also because the vision was, I don't get a lot of like open, like my like waking life open eye, like, oh, most of the stuff that happens to me is like I'll have a dream. Those are my precogs. If I'm not doing like remote viewing. But this was very, very, very specific and very peculiar. And I was like 13. I'm not on drugs. I'm not doing anything. I don't even know what happened. Something just, I didn't feel well, and I stayed home from school, and I didn't eat for a couple days, and I had some visions. So.
That's an interesting crossover. Like that kind of rings a bell, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but it's so weird when those things like happen at the same time.
Yeah. And what was kind of funny was that I had been having like a hard time at school, and I was very unfocused, and there was a lot of stuff going on that was not like, I was 13, and life was not good. Um, After this, I got really focused, and things started getting better. So it was, it feels kind of like my subconscious just hijacked me for a couple of days and like just
Ah, there
put
we
me
go.
down and said, okay, stop for a second. We're going to reboot, and then we're going to do this better.
Yes, that right there. That is what sounds so familiar. I have had moments in my life where that definitely happens. Wow, yeah. Moments just came flashing back to me. There was this one time when I was starting to date around 2008, and I set myself up for a date, and then all of a sudden I just did not feel well. But it didn't seem like, I checked like all my little engine lights and everything. I'm like, oh wait, this doesn't make sense. I just
Uh-huh.
feel this way. And sure enough, I tried to force myself to go on that date. It ended up really bad, and I had to be taken home.
Ooh.
And yeah, so I mean, just trying to listen. I should have listened to my subconscious back then, but yeah, that's also happened to me again in like Ohio, and like it's just interesting. Your subconscious hijacking you. and then utilizing the precognition towards the end. I love that.
Yeah, it really felt like a reboot. What you're saying about that date, that makes me, we get a lot of it's the emotional content that is the kicker with a lot of people. I know
Mm-hmm.
this is not across the board, but I have to say this for me, that if I get what feels like a premonition of the future and it is delivered with a whole big whack of anxiety and nothing else, it's pretty much always false. That's always something. What I've noticed is that when my subconscious keeps me out of trouble from something that's coming in the future, I just, like, what would happen is if I was supposed to not go on that date, I would just get sick. I wouldn't feel nervous about it. I would just be like, oh, I can't do it. Or
Yeah.
something would just be arranged so that that didn't happen, and it happens without panic. So, I know that other people, they get emotional precognitions that are valid for them, but for me specifically, that is not the case. Like if it comes with like, oh my god, the world is gonna end, it's like, no. It feels
Yep.
like it is, but this is something else.
Yep.
And I actually, like, I do wonder, what the average length is. If there's, it's sort of asymptotic, like how many precognitions that you have that are mostly within the next couple of days, and then like you get a few that are like a week or 2 weeks out, and then is there something special about the ones that are years and years ahead?
I actually recall, and do I have the book here on my? No, I returned it. It was one that I rented. When I had borrowed Transcendental Mind
Hmm.
from the library, I remember reading in there the amount of time, according to Julia's research, I believe,
Yes.
um, the amount of time may feel like it places an extra importance on the event, but according to what she's like seen and witnessed and gone through, it's not. There's no correlation
Yeah,
overall, you know.
it's just, I don't know.
But it feels like it. But it does feel like it
Yeah,
because I
when you
mean,
have something that's been tucked away in your back pocket for a few decades, and suddenly it's in front of you, and you're just like, wait. Yeah,
right?
it makes a more personal impression.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I have kind of every once in a while, I will have like a fractal kind of vision in my head of like what this might look like in terms of if you were to build a shape and stitch it together. I
Hmm.
can't put it into words, but anyway, thank you for humoring me.
I was thinking like a lot of like how Earthworks was just saying, like how some things are without us necessarily knowing, things are set up for us that come with precognition, and they set ourselves up to receive precognition. Like when Earthworks was talking about when she was 13, didn't eat for a while. I'd like to think that a lot of times we get put in positions where our barriers get broken down so that we can therefore be more open to receive.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Excuse me. But yeah, it felt like it really felt automatic. I mean, I want to use the word autonomic, that like my body just was like, no, we're just going to rest. There's no particular reason that you're going to ever understand, but we're just going to take 2 days off and we're going to do a reboot.
Yeah, it's like a synchronicity premonition.
Yeah, yeah. And my job sort of as an adult has been to unlearn all of the stuff that's layered over that, which is like, oh, you need to be rational and logical, and we're trained to disregard our subconscious, and I think that's bullshit.
I do not like disregarding the subconscious, and I think that goes into how we are trained to have egos as we grow in our
Yeah,
society that we learn from.
I have felt the worst whenever I've betrayed my subconscious, and these moments where it's like precognition included. I'm trying to remember like if my precognition kind of went away like during that period because I think it did, and it just goes to show you like if you misuse it or don't use it, it kind of subconsciously decides, okay, I'm going to take a hike for a bit. You're not even future oriented at all, so
I
right.
feel like that kind of goes into how when you resist being open, and therefore you become not open, and you're not able to receive. It's like we can choose to go with our egos, and that's how we disconnect from it. I feel like.